Welcome to Dealer Driven, where the rubber meets the road to success.
Welcome to Dealer Driven. I'm Michael Hayes.
And I'm Cameron Wilson. In today's episode, we've got a fantastic guest who's going to help you unlock one of the most underutilized profit centers in your dealership, the service department.
We're thrilled to be joined by our friend Jennifer Suzuki, president of eDealer Solutions and a Colorado shredder, who's here to discuss why service sales training is often the missing piece in dealership growth.
Service departments have massive revenue potential, but are often under-optimized.
If you're looking to increase profitability in your service department and create a culture of confident, value-driven selling, this episode is packed with insights you don't want to miss.
Let's get started.
Jen, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm literally so privileged. I can't believe I'm in the same podcast with both of you.
We're so happy you're here.
I'm just amazed we've taken you off the mountain, too. Okay. Oh.
You know, this will be our last weekend.
Well, in addition to skiing, Jen, what are some of the biggest obstacles service advisors face when trying to sell additional recommended services?
That ties back to a lot of things that come to my mind right away. And the first thing is that I think that customers, they don't always trust a car dealership, let alone a service department, let alone a service advisor. And so sometimes you've already got that skepticism that you've got to overturn. The other part is that they think we're overpriced and they don't always know what they're getting for their money. And so it continues to be that concern that's going to impact the way that they feel about the dealership. And I think sometimes people also have these experiences in the past where they're not getting calls on status updates, the advisor's not communicating. This is their biggest gripe. And no one's communicating with me. I have to keep calling in. I keep getting a voicemail. And so I think in those regards, there's just a lot that we need to overturn from the jump.
You know, along that line, and I'm glad you brought that up. So how do we move that mindset from a transaction to being consultative?
Well, the first thing that I can say is we have to change the mindset. This is a mentality. So we have to ensure that the advisors are being shown how to be consultants, advisors, less salesy, or less transactional where I'm just trying to cut to the chase. You know, a lot of times if we can coach our front line to be consultative, that they're focused on educating, not just selling, but educating. They're fighting for loyalty. They are literally thinking about the lifetime customer value when they choose their words, when they choose their approaches, when they look that customer in the eye and they think, I should just smile. You know what I mean? Like those little things can also help in ensuring that we set up our team members for success. Because a lot of times, you know, there's more to this. We have to build transparency. A lot of times we don't pop the hood and show people at check-in where things are located or why we would recommend a certain service. And so when we can inject evidence, that improves trust and confidence from people, let alone the videos that go out and that MPI report that goes out. These are all things that help with the mentality. But going back to what you asked, it's really about developing, you know, a customer service focused, a customer centric focused approach versus sell. You know what I mean?
So if I may real quickly on that same point, when you work with dealers, doesn't it really have to have kind of a change in the vision that they understand about what their job is from the fixed ops director or the dealer to make that happen?
Well, it involves the entire dealership. I think that a lot of times advisors aren't schooled on how the operation works and how there's a lot of touch points and how every touch point matters. And so, you know, a lot of times we don't see the sales advisors mingling with the salespeople or even in the same meetings. And to your point, I think it's about communicating internally so people understand the business, how it works, what the goals are, and being transparent in what our numbers look like and what we're trying to achieve.
So, Jen, you've already mentioned trust and transparency. Are there any other things you can think of that advisors can do to build additional trust with a customer right away?
I think a lot of times this is the piece that's missing, is we're not slowing down. Everybody's in a race to the finish line. And if I'm fighting for loyalty and I'm fighting for that customer to trust me, feel confident and believe in me, respect me, I need to slow it down. You know, get to know people. Find out things about people. Ask more questions about the service that's needed. They came in with the check engine light on, ask more questions. Hey, how long has it been going on for? How long has it been on? Do you notice it coming in and out? Has this happened before? Just asking shows that you care. And I always tell people everything is chalked up to 4 simple letters, CARE. That is what we need to do. And so if you slow down, you're going to actually create a lot more trust because you're asking better questions and you're spending time with people. So for me, I look at the customer's address and I say, are you still living over there on Daisy Lane? And I should know the part of town, or I might ask them, what part of town is that? And I'm looking for a connection. So with service advisors, this is one thing that I always suggest to them. Look for your personalized approaches. But if you aren't thinking about personalizing your approach, you're not looking for the things that are going to help you personalize. For example, you open up a car door. I'm on the hunt. I'm like, where's the dog at? Is there evidence of dog hair? Is there kids? Is there evidence of goldfish and, gummy bears? These are things that I can immediately dial into and say, hey, I noticed you got some kids out there. How old are they? Me too. Find your common ground, but you have to hunt for it.
So when you get all that information, then how do you coach people to use that in values-based selling to get people to buy into your recommendations because they're based on all of this information that you gathered?
Value-based selling is focused on helping, not just selling. And I really think that's the takeaway here. Our advisors need to be advised on what this actually means. And when I do get to know my customer better, I'm actually helping. When I ask more questions, I'm actually helping them. I'm letting them know why the service matters. Now, this is an equation that I teach often to the advisors. And I say, look, the average person has no idea what this work is. They don't understand the job. So your job is to explain the job and make sure that they understand it in an easy to understand term, not the tech term that was translated to you, but in helping them understand what's going on with their car, this allows us to make recommendations and it allows us to showcase the need to correct a safety concern. But, you have to be able to land the conversation that you're having with people. And the only way that we're going to do that is to be thinking about this as serving people. When we talk about reliability and the importance of the work and the reward of getting the work done, that's when they start to recognize that what we're saying is actually factual and it's trusted. And look, we're looking to help the customer maintain the investment of their vehicle. And so when we're recommending things, we want to be sure that I got to just say this. This is like my famous saying, value before price. Understand what you're getting before you drop the price. And if we learn to talk in this equation, it helps people really see that you're a helper versus, that seller that they're anticipating and they're skeptic from the jump.
Jen, you mentioned, a customer brings in a vehicle and the check engine light is on. And after that vehicle has been checked in and it comes back, let's say they figured out what the problem was, but that vehicle also needs an additional repair or let's say needs tires. How does the service advisor effectively communicate that to the consumer without feeling like they're being too pushy?
So this is the tricky part, because a lot of times we just want to blast them with what's wrong. Your brakes are bad. It's like, okay, let's try this again. Because if we are thinking about value selling and we're thinking about personalized relationships and we're fighting for loyalty, I need to say this in a way that maybe helps the customer understand what they're getting for their money. Your brakes, they're getting thin. And we're starting to see some wear on the rotors. You might have seen this in the technician video. I asked the technician to zoom in. Were you able to see that? So if we replace them right now, this is just going to prevent further damage and more expensive repairs later, which I want to help you avoid. And if we get it done today, we can just save you time so you don't have to reset another appointment and bring your car back and find transportation and all that.
You talk about this, the importance of the words that we use is everything. So when you're coaching and everything, one of the things that's a personal thing to me, and I know you know this, is that I forbid the salespeople to ever use the word upsell because it's such a different connotation word than they think it is when we talk to a customer. So when you're working with people and teams, how do you get them to really think about the words that they're using when we're sharing all this information, going through the risk and reward conversation that you just did with the customer? How do we get them to use the words that are hit home more and show us all the things that you're saying about being helpful?
My first thought is is that we have to keep having these conversations. These conversations are not happening enough. And if we don't teach people and constantly nurture team member success, how will they know? So there's something that I do in some of my classes, and it's about looking at positive words. I'm going to take care of that for you. You're in good hands. These are like 2 ones that I just pulled out of a class yesterday. And I said, just saying these little things to people, help them feel confident in you. It's a positive statement, and try it out today. So for the advisors, a lot of times I'm looking for them to work on their relationship building, make better connections on the drive. This is going to help us when we make our MPI phone call. This is going to help us ensure the customer wants to come back. But a lot of times I'll just ask a simple question. Well, you got something fun planned for today? And that helps me understand the customer's schedule for today and expectations. And at the same time, they answer it every time. No, Jen, I got to go to work. Oh, where do you work? How long have you worked though? What kind of work do you do? Oh no, Jen, I got a day off today. I'm going to be doing some landscaping, some yard work. I'm like, oh, okay. That way, again, I can notate these things, and it just makes the customer feel like we care. And it's helping me inject more positive words into, the conversation. When I say things like, your safety is our biggest concern. This is what we do here. We keep customers safe. I want to make sure you're taken care of. I've got my best technician, a certified master technician working on your vehicle today. I want you to know you're in good hands. Now, they're not just going to say that. They're not going to just say that. You have to show them. Our managers have to be leaders today. They have to be the best trainers and the best coaches. And if they want to build a championship team, you're constantly engaging the team on language like this. How long did that take? That's a 1-minute hit. Come on, let's get them fired up today.
Well, along that line, while we're on that, and we mentioned earlier about spending more time with the customer conversations, but for so long, we beat it in their head. They don't want to be here very long. Get them in and out as quickly as you can.
It's true.
So how do we change that thought process? Because all these things are great, but again, we've been beating it into them. Okay, efficiently, get them in, get them out.
That goes back to the mentality. It goes back to culture. It goes back to training. We are trying to be efficient, understood, but a couple more seconds to slow things down and to talk in more detail with customers is actually going to make things. You ever hear that statement? Slow down to speed up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what just came to my mind here. And it's like sometimes we just really have to understand that there's a culture here of customer service. Us nurturing customers and making them feel warm and appreciated and welcomed and valued is not going to happen when you're rushing them. It's not going to happen when you're not looking them in the eye, and you're not going to happen when you're explaining what you're doing for them, when you're not explaining the value of the shop and the work that we're doing. All of these things tie into each other, but I think it's more of a culture. It's a mentality. Nobody wants to feel rushed. We're not going to meet the company goals or our daily goal, with that mentality.
You talked a lot about culture and changing the culture in the service department. As a service manager, how do you help service managers develop their role to become coaches and mentors for the service advisors?
Well, the whole idea here is that we're trying to ensure that we're helping our advisors be successful. And so we want them to come across as knowledgeable. And some advisors, I actually talked to a dealership yesterday. They said, we just hired 2 new advisors. They came from hospitality. They don't know the jobs. But we have, so we're going to have to work on product knowledge. We're going to have to work on communication skills. We want to be sure that our advisors are speaking to customers in a way that is feeling casual, friendly, yet professional, at the same time showcasing their knowledge of the services. And that comes with nurturing one-on-one, performance-based conversations and actions. So our leaders today really have to spend time with people. I want to build a culture where we're supporting people's success. I'm walking into the dealership and I'm saying, look, I have a new person. Let me help quiz them on some of the most popular jobs and what the reward is for doing these jobs and what the risk is for customers not doing. And it's just a simple activity. I do these things all the time. And I always tell managers, after I leave and I teach you all these great processes, you've got to carry the torch and you've got to motivate and keep the momentum and keep the focus on these tactics that we've put out here to help rebuild, or enhance a culture. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that our advisors are coming across as people who care, and they know how to present value, and they know how to show people where problems exist. And all of these things, again, build a culture of showing the customer instead of telling them all the time what they need. Let me show you the problem. Let me show you why this is important. Let me explain it a little bit further. So I know I keep coming back to these things, but I will tell you, this is single-handedly the biggest areas that people can dial into and managers can work on as they're coaching and providing feedback with team members, because it's just a hustle. The whole department is so busy from 7 a.m. to 10 o'clock. Everybody's running around like a rat race, so when do you have time to focus on your culture? And they say you should have, 10, 20% of your day focused on rebuilding, growing your department. And you're not going to be able to do that in the rat race.
So have you seen success? You mentioned earlier about, the sales department and the service department not necessarily knowing that much about each other as much as they should. Can't imagine that. But anyways, just thinking about that, have you seen some successes when we seem to do in a lot of dealerships far more sales, consultative, coaching on the sales side, variable side, than on the service side? Have you seen opportunities where we could get service advisors, service consultants involved in that same training at the same time with those people as being really helpful to what they need to do? I mean, just another look at it, if I may ask.
That is a very good question. I'm going to tell you so I've wanted to do the same thing, because people will say, Jen, can you come and do our service and sales at the same time? And I say, I can try it. And I have several times, and I find that there are a lot of parallels. But what happens is that, you're going to start to tune out some people at certain times. And the more you allow them to tune out when it's not their segment, or an example is not catered to their department, I find it ineffective. Now, I can think of Greenwich Ford in New York. Okay. And this is the only dealership. And I'm going to tell you why it works for them, where I can train service and sales at the exact same time. It's the same culture, it's the same processes, and they all run parallel, of importance. Everything that I just stated absolutely applies to the sales team. But I'll tell you, they're best friends. The service advisors are besties with the salespeople, and the sales managers, are besties with the service managers and directors. And there is such a vibe where everybody's so cohesive. Everybody understands each other's initiatives, and everybody understands what we're trying to do as a team. So this, and the great example of that working is when a service advisor sees that there's a $5,000 job the customer's declining, and before he lets that customer go, he's already texted his boy in the sales department and said, hey, come down and meet this customer. I think there's something that you might be able to do. And when we don't let a customer walk, and when a customer, needs an engine replacement, again, they immediately think of the sales team. When they see a customer in high mileage with a lot of work, they immediately think of the sales team. And the sales team's thinking about the service team, because they think, okay, well, let me sell, let me introduce the advisor. Let me make sure they get an email with the advisor's name at point of sale. Let me make sure they get a video of our advisor. They're really, really boosting up that advisor's credibility.
I love that you said that, because we've had both Academy instructors, Brian Crossan and Larry, on the show, and they both talked about how everybody should be besties between parts and service. And you're talking about this dealership where they're besties between service and sales. So basically we're saying everybody just needs to be besties.
Yeah, but that's a culture. You have to do team meetings together. It's okay to have a pizza party, at the end of the day, and talk process together and build relationships and have everybody together in the same, what do they call that, cafeteria?
Whatever that is.
Lunchroom.
Lunchroom.
Yeah.
So before we go, are there any quick wins or simple adjustments, little things that service teams can do today to see immediate improvements?
Okay, you're going to think this is so silly. I actually say this in my trainings all the time, and it actually ties back to money and line items and success. And you're going to think this is so elementary, and you would even say, like, people pay you for that, Jen? But I'm going to tell you, it's free. It doesn't cost anybody anything. You just have to remember to do this. And you have to look people in the eye, and you have to hold it and you have to smile. And not like fake. It's just you need to show an interest in people. So they're always on their iPads and they're checking people in and they're asking them basic questions and they don't even look people in the eye. How do you trust somebody if you can't look them in the eye? How do you believe somebody that doesn't look at you? Do you know what I mean? So it really does start with this first impression, and that's a very easy, quick win that can help people, get to where we want to be. The other thing, again, it was on the same line, like, oh, we're going back to elementary school. I know, because we really do need to tackle this if we're going to present, the job and what it is and what the risk is of not doing what the reward is in this equation that I shared earlier. But being a great listener and having the right questions. So I like to put together a list of questions, and these are things that help teach advisors how to dig deeper, learn more about your customer. So a quick win is to ask more questions, whether that's just more things about that you notice about their car. That's more lifestyle and remembering these things, or what's more questions into the work that they came in for. How long has this been going on? Can you try to give me an idea of what the sound sounds like? So I can translate it to the technician. Things like this just can help us improve our relationships and our credibility. Repeating back. This is so easy. You're a good listener. I tell people, you're a good how do you prove you're a good listener in 2 seconds? Because that's about how much time we have. Repeat it back to them. So let me make sure that I heard you correctly, Cameron. You said it's doing this at this time at this speed. It's on and off. It's been going on for 2 weeks. Did I miss anything? That is a quick win, and I got 1 million.
We want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and sharing some wonderful thoughts and insights. And next time, just dial up the enthusiasm just a little bit more, please. Okay?
Everyone always says that. They're like, could you bring more energy? Okay.
Thank you so much for being here. It's been great having you on the show.
Thank you so much, Jen.
My pleasure. That was so fun. So fun. Thank you.
That's all the time we have for this episode. A huge thank you again to our guest and friend, Jennifer Suzuki, for joining us. If you're enjoying the show, leave us a rating or a review and tell a friend. And also tell a friend that your academy has training for Essential Service Advisor and Ultimate Service Advisor online almost every month. So go to nada.org, education, and sign up now. Once again, I'm Michael Hayes.
And I'm Cameron Wilson. This has been Dealer Driven from NADA. Keep your dealership in drive, and we'll see you next time.